Welcome. My name is Selena Layel. I am a coach here with Wellness Coach by Meditation.live. And it is my pleasure today to be hosting this panel with Dr. Eric Frazer. Hello, Dr. Eric. Welcome.
Thank you.
Yes. So as a reminder, for those of you joining us, if you are joining from YouTube, hello and welcome. We can't actually interact with you live when you watch from YouTube. However, you can download the Wellness Coach app in the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to be able to interact with Dr. Eric. You can actually ask questions and just experience what it's like to interact with a live coach here. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Eric, to this panel on achieving high performance.
Thanks so much. It's a pleasure to be back here again. And this topic is one of my favorite ones because it's something that everybody wants, right? It's like the holy grail. How do we achieve top performance, peak performance? And then of course, the follow-up is how do we sustain it? So like all of our classes, what I'd like to do is just start with a very brief meditation that will get us into the mind state and perhaps the flow state behind the secrets and science of peak performance. So I'd invite everyone just to get comfortable wherever you're sitting, however you're sitting, relax your body. And you can just gently close your eyes, just let your eyelids fall down and hang loose and just relax into this moment. And as you relax into the moment, it doesn't matter what's happening around you anymore. This is your time. And notice your breathing. Just notice it going in. Notice it going out. And as I've said in the past, air is energy, and energy provides replenishment to your body. And as you breathe in, you're breathing in that energy. And as you breathe out, you're releasing fatigue. So in your next breath, when you breathe in, just imagine energy coming in. And where I want you to go with this breathing, as you feel it go in through your nostrils, is think of a time when you were in the experience of peak performance, or if you want to use the word, a flow state. And this can be anything. For some people, it could be playing a musical instrument. For other people, it could be going for a very simple walk. And remember what it felt like to be in that experience. Maybe it was intense exercise. Maybe it was intense concentration, free of distraction. And imagine where you were when that happened, who was there, what you were doing, and how your body felt, and how your mind felt, and that warmth that you felt inside with limitless energy, with limitless optimism, with a sensation of well-being, and how that just naturally happened, moment after moment after moment. And as you re-experience that, whether it's with your sensations or your thoughts, think about what happened before that. What led up to that? What practice? And what daily habits? And what routines? And how were you taking care of yourself to be in that moment and have that flow state and high performance coming from within and delivering the outward results. Those feelings are what we will talk about today in practical actions. So hang on to that memory. Maybe write about it after today's class. Take one more deep breath in and just let it all out so you can be present in this moment, and we can focus on today's topic for replenishing ourselves with peak performance. All right.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eric. That was very peaceful and very beautiful. So as a reminder to everyone who is here with us on the app, this is an interactive panel. Dr. Eric is ready to receive your questions, receive your comments. And as a reminder, you can do that by way of sending a message via the chat box, the Q&A box, or clicking on the hand symbol. That will allow us to actually unmute you so we can hear your lovely voice. But please do send your questions this way. And to open up this conversation, well, first of all, I'd love to hear, how was that meditation for you? So please feel free to share that in the chat box. And then Dr. Eric, I'd love to know, I love your expertise. What does high performance achievement look like? What can that look like?
Yeah, so it's the kind of thing where people know it when they're experiencing it. And sometimes we forget how to unpackage what created that experience, right? What contributed to those particular outcomes? What allowed the balance to reach and sustain that peak performance? There's some new ideas about this, particularly for today's leading companies and building leadership. And Harvard Business Review just came out with a great article today talking about the importance of every single leader having coaching on an ongoing basis, that it's almost a built-in requirement to have a feedback loop, right? To help us identify and maximize this peak performance state and this continuous learning and this attainment of goals. So this is something to really take into account and think about how you are not necessarily alone in this process, that there are coaching resources that can be invaluable, and that the people who have paved the road ahead of us have a proven track record of leveraging that kind of relationship to really maintain the thrust and the consistency of having peak performance and high performing states of mind on routine and innovative business tasks. So where do we go from there? You know, it all goes back to looking at a lot of the daily habits and daily routines and business demands. And maybe Selena, there's a particular point that you wanted to sort of evolve into this conversation.
Definitely. Well, I was just curious if you could just give us maybe an image, maybe just a few bullet points, because I would like to get into some more of these details in a moment. But just to give us an image, what does someone who is achieving high performance look like? Like, what are some qualities of someone who is achieving high performance? Like, what would that look like from the outside perspective?
Yep. So this is a great sort of area where we can bullet in some things. And they may sound simple, okay? And some of them actually are, but this all gets back into the habit research, right? That we're all good at doing things, positive habits for short periods of time, but it's the sustaining of these, right? And there's been numerous scientific articles and research backing these points. So the first starts with something as simple as this: sleep, getting enough sleep. You will find that time and time again, guest after guest, professional after professional, the notion of having enough sleep is so important in our lives, given the high demands that we have. Okay, so getting enough rest is something to take inventory of. And the people that I talk with, that's one of the first questions. How much sleep are you getting, right? What are your sleep routines, right? And because of the constant distractions, all day long. If we don't have that opportunity to replenish, you're not going to get the quality and quantity of sleep that your body requires to replenish itself. So that's one bullet. Then we can move on into nutrition and wellness, right? So again, when we're nurturing ourselves to have that energy, so we were going through the experience of flow state and using one of the elements, air and oxygen, right, to replenish energy. Another key ingredient of high performing people is that they are sustaining themselves with good nutrition, right? And it doesn't mean that you're on the latest diet fad or you're pushing yourself to particular extremes. Go ahead and experiment with that stuff, whatever makes you happy, right? But the consistency key is really identifying that you have healthy, nutritious habits that can sustain your physical stamina, right? And your brain power, right? The nutrition for your brain, for getting into what I'll talk about a little later, right? The demands of today's organizations, being a problem solver and being an innovator, having that is really key. Another key, of course, goes hand in hand with that, which is exercise, right? Having some kind of physical exercise. And it's really not important to get hung up on how much and how long, and do I need an exercise coach, and all of these things. The key is just like Nike's slogan, just do it, right? And where I see people sometimes struggling with this is in two main areas. One is, if it's not on the calendar until it's a routine, it gets skipped, right? It's like hitting the snooze button on the alarm. Okay, so maybe you want to put it on your calendar just as a mental reminder, right? Like a little cognitive cue. Okay, tomorrow morning I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a 15-minute walk, or I'm going to get on the bike for 20 minutes, or I'm going to go for a run for 20 minutes or a half hour, or whatever it is, right? Or you're going to go to the yoga studio, right? It's making that commitment to exercise, because that replenishes, right? It replenishes mentally, gets you into that flow state, because it requires a level of attention and concentration that we're not necessarily used to sustaining during the day. So it's a great secondary gain off of that. And then another pointer that you can use for high performance are people that are constantly at the top of their game. They are continually learning. So this concept of growth mindset, right, which has been extensively written about, and having continuous learning built into your schedule. Maybe it's not daily, but having a practice to learn new information about areas that are in your domain of expertise, okay, to continually propel you to the top of the pyramid, but also to learn about diversity, okay, and having diverse learning experiences that will broaden your knowledge base, right? We're in a collective intelligence community. So having opportunities for continuous learning, whether it's through podcasts, TED Talks, audiobooks, you name it, regular, good old-fashioned print books. These are the tools that top performers are practicing. And then last but not least, someone on the heels of an earlier class, right? Meditation and mindfulness are really simple practices and habits, because you could do them anywhere. They have scientifically proven to improve cognitive stamina, to improve well-being, to improve emotional regulation. So again, maybe it's putting your alert on your app to join Meditation Live for a little bit, or to take a 5-minute meditation, whether it's guided or whether it's silent, but having that moment to regulate your body and to be able to dial back into that flow state, right? And maybe you're feeling fatigued in the afternoon, and building in a little window for that you time, right? To recalibrate, rebalance, think with better clarity. These are the kinds of bullets that you can fine tune and drill down into.
Awesome. And what I love about this is I imagine a lot of people think of high performance as working overtime and working harder and doing more, and this sense of pushing and giving so much more to be able to experience this high performance. But most of what I'm hearing you share is that self-care is ultimately the best way to really be high performance achievers. So that's awesome. I love that.
And you're cueing me, Selena. Just last month in January, there was an article that came out. I can't recall the exact citation. It may have been the Journal of Applied Psychology, but the article was about the concept of unplugging, and they looked at people that were in high performance, high demand jobs who unplugged versus people who didn't unplug, right? And I won't get into the unplugging. We all know what that means. But essentially, the people that were able to unplug at the end of the day and did so deliberately and did so consistently were completely more and significantly more replenished the next day to tackle the demands of the next day. So it really is yes, it's wellness in a global sense, but there's science behind this showing the needs that we have, both cognitively and physically, and the importance of, preserving that.
Awesome. It makes so much sense. Coming back to the question for our viewers about how the meditation practice was, Julie shared that meditation was great, got my mind focused on this, not everything on my desk. Great. And another question I'd love to hear from all of you. Share with us maybe an area where you feel like you could unplug more. Where do you feel like you could give yourself some more self-care or take some more time for yourself to be able to have access to this high performing achievement, a high performance inside of yourself? Okay, Dr. Eric, so you touched on this briefly, and I would love to hear a little bit more about how meditation and mindfulness can benefit us in this way to have high performance.
Yeah. So just to unpackage that one layer for today's conversation, the concept of curiosity is really, really important because it's an area of brain activity and brain stimulation that drives innovation, right? So why does innovation matter? Well, just look around you and look at all of the innovations that's happening on a global basis. That's one kind of innovation. The other kind of innovation is solving complex problems, right? So again, when we look at all of the complex problems in the planet today, and we look at the complex problems that your organization and your industry is tackling, having this curiosity and this openness to be able to not just brainstorm, because brainstorming is what I would call an active cognitive activity. But when you engage in meditation and mindfulness, it settles the brain. It settles the brain waves, right? And it allows, and we don't have the precise science to show it yet on a screen, but I'm sure we will in the foreseeable future, but it allows those unconscious ideas, those deep insights to emerge and to take form, okay? And this is what facilitates and gets the flywheel going for solving complex problems and innovating. Mindfulness and meditation and other things that I've talked about before, like going into float tanks and even some kinds of yoga and such, these all get right to the heart of the matter. It's like a quick jump start.
Great, thank you. We have some comments coming in. The first is from Julie, I think regarding the question about unplugging. She says, yes, I have a very strict no more work cutoff to unplug, needed for hubby and wife team. Yes, right? You're working at home all the time or working together on your own project. And then Carlos has a question. He says, hi, Dr. Eric. What tips do you have for developing a growth mindset?
Great question. So I always like to start with this part. What are you passionate about, right? Because passion drives your motivation, okay? So if you're not sure, make a list, journal about it, talk to other people, get some feedback, right? Your passion will be your energy behind your growth mindset, okay? And then you need to really think about what your overall goals and objectives are. What are you curious about learning more about? What do you want to get better at? Okay, these are sort of level one of growth mindset, sort of self-awareness activities. And then you can pivot into looking at specific learning resources, like I talked about before, that you can empower yourself with new information. And I recommend really having a portfolio in terms of the kinds of resources that you utilize. So I talked about some of the digital and print resources, but it could also be things like going to a new conference, right? Going to a workshop or a webinar specifically on a specific knowledge area that you're interested in. And then, of course, you could even expand it further and take it the next step, which I like to see people do. If you're a leader, or you're in a leadership position, or you're working on your leadership skills, once you have that tacit information and you've grown, right, go and teach it. Go and share it to your team. Share the wisdom, share the key benefits, share what you've learned to facilitate everyone else's growth. And it all comes full circle.
Great. Thank you. We have a comment from Julie responding actually to the question before about unplugging. And she says to cut out the TV instead do more reading.
Right.
Okay, I think that's all we have in the chat for us. Let's move on to another question. I'd love to hear if there's a relationship between high performance achievement and burnout. And if there is, how can we avoid this?
Yeah, burnout is a huge topic. Most people that I'm involved with on a one-to-one basis are experiencing some degree of burnout, and it ebbs and flows. And let's describe what burnout is. Burnout is the experience of being overwhelmed, right? And the experience of being overwhelmed is what we also call stress, right? And when our body is stressed, it activates our nervous system, right? It becomes hyperactivated, right? So when our nervous system is hyperactivated, then we lose the flow state. That's what happens. Then we've got that pile of stuff on our desk, or multiple items on the to-do list, right? And everything feels and seems overwhelming, and it's the polar opposite of high performance. So, the first is to be aware of it, right? So are you experiencing burnout, right? Or what's creating the burnout experience? And what happens to you when you experience that? What is your stress response? Everybody has their own stress response. And then the key is to come up with a solution, right? We can have what's called an internal locus of control, right? Which is, I'm in control of my body, I'm in control of my stress system, I'm in control of how I respond to stress. And this is where you can employ some of these techniques to learn how to regulate your nervous system, right? So it could be, like I talked about earlier today, getting some exercise, right? Taking a walk, getting some fresh air, getting sunlight, some vitamin D. It could be having something nutritious to eat. It could be mindfulness meditation, right? And by utilizing these practices, you mitigate daily stress, okay, which is the key concept behind having the habit. The habit is what prevents you from getting to that level of burnout where it's just too much and it's overwhelmed and you need to take a couple of days off from work, right? That's not sustainable, because then you're behind and then you go back and you feel like you're overwhelmed even more to catch up. So the key is to understand this system, that this is happening, that your body is a system, your nervous system is a system, and your organization is a system, right? And all of these systems are interacting, and the one system that you have control over is yours. And by practicing things like mindfulness and understanding how regulation happens in your body, you can take control of that regulation and have a better equilibrium on your day-to-day basis and prevent that kind of burnout.
Excellent. Thank you. So we are a few minutes over our 20-minute mark. So if you need to leave, thank you so much for being here. We will close out with another question and maybe another brief practice, whatever Dr. Eric decides. But if you do need to leave, again, thank you for being here with us. Dr. Eric, I wanted to ask, and one other reminder, if you have any questions for Dr. Eric or anything you'd like to share on this topic of high performance, maybe an area in which you're struggling or you'd like to just have some feedback from him, please do send it our way. Send it in the chat box, Q&A, raise your hand. And I do see that Carlos just responded. He said, thanks, Selena and Dr. Eric, great session.
Good.
Great. So I would love to hear, I was going to ask you, how can we sustain a sense of high performance achievement? And I'd love to maybe gear it in a specific direction, because you've already shared all of these great habits that we can use to ideally probably sustain it. I'm curious though, what you would say if we were wanting to sustain that flow state, which I'm hearing you're saying is really the embodiment of high performance achievement. But if we're in that experience of flow state where everything is just moving with that kind of ease and grace, are there any other things that you can add or think of other than these other daily habits that are great that you've shared?
Yep. So, ducks fly with ducks is an old saying. And, to take this beyond oneself, it's important to connect with other leaders, right? Because they're going through the same experiences as you. They're committed to things like growth mindset and continuous learning. They're building their level of grit. They're learning how to balance positive daily habits in their life to drive innovation, right? To drive outcomes, to sustain peak performance, right? And by connecting with other people that are doing this, you will have a natural feedback loop, right? And you can have your own little sort of personal team, right, of leaders that are all working the same kinds of habits, but you'll learn different tips along the way, right? And you'll get feedback and insights from what other people are doing and how they're doing it. And the novelty of those experiences will, one, be informing, but it'll also be very validating for you, right? So when you have a down day, right, or you're feeling that you're nudging up against that wall of stress and the potential burnout cliff, there are other people going through the same experience as well. So again, I think connecting with others is really key to the process, that none of us is on this journey alone. And maybe it's just a matter of, connecting with the right kind of people or the right person, or reaching out and maybe being the leader, right? And proposing, a lunch group, that talks about one of these topics, or an after work meetup, and just having a hangout session and asking some questions, what are you working on getting better at, right? Or what helps you, sustain such great leadership at work? I really admire what you do, right? So having open, relaxed conversations about this can build your team, which is, of course, inspiring and motivating to continue doing the same.
Great. It makes me think of that saying. I can't think of it the exact same, but it essentially says that we become like the 10 people we spend the most time with. We embody those qualities and characteristics. So this sounds like it's in alignment with that. If we're wanting to maintain and achieve this flow state, this high performance in our lives, spend time with people who are also focusing on that to help maintain it.
That's right. And I love that word alignment, because it's so true. Okay, there's certain truths to this process, and self-alignment is true, but also aligning with others, right? And alignment with others creates the experience of reciprocity, right? And reciprocity is one of those experiences that has exponential feedback, right? So it's, you show reciprocity towards somebody else and you get tenfold back. And that kind of alignment with people where you build reciprocity is an experience that you should not only seek out, but seek to create and nurture on a regular basis.
I love that. Thank you. Okay, let's close maybe with a brief question here. I'm sure it could be a very long answer, but for time's sake, I just love to hear you touch on how leaders, how people in positions of power with employees can support their employees to achieve high performance.
Yep. This is, there's companies generally fall in two categories. One is innovation and the other is laggard. And, innovative companies are tearing down cubicle walls and putting up plants. They're ripping out the old kitchens and putting in new ones that have a combination of nutritious snacks, nutritious drinks, and also comfort food. They're taking out conference rooms and they're putting in space for rest and relaxation, like meditation and exercise, and I guess even to some extremes, taking a nap. And they are really putting in the necessary budget for experiences that promote professional development and leadership, like mentoring, right? They have a mentoring program in place or in development. They have on-demand coaching available through outside consultants or internally. And they are replenishing their budgets and expanding their budgets with continuous learning opportunities, with workshops like this that are available within the organization on a routine basis. So people can sort of just drop in, learn something for an hour, and then do the same thing the week after, and really embracing, where all this falls into, which is, as I spoke about last week, emotional intelligence and psychological competencies, that there is a template for creating this within a work culture. And it's a matter of having a strategy for it, of course, and then empowering it with a budget and programming.
So clear and so good. And I love that. I feel a sense of relief just imagining people having access to healthier snacks and a meditation yoga room and plants in the office. It's a really amazing evolution that we're moving into.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we're right. Baby steps. That's it. That's the beginning. Well, Dr. Eric, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here with us, for watching on YouTube, for being here on the app and participating. Dr. Eric, I'd love to hand it over to you if you have some final words of wisdom you'd like to share with us to complete.
Thank you, Selena. Everyone, thanks for attending today. Your peak performance, your high performance is at your fingertips. And maybe take some time today to reflect on the points that we talked about and how you can fine tune that, and how you can maybe dig deeper into some of the resources that are available to you out there, and also reach out and connect with others that are on the same journey and have the same objective of maintaining high performance. Thank you, everyone.